Ignite your imagination with fantasy sabers.
Let's start today's story on Malachor during Star Wars Rebels. The infamous duel between Ahsoka Tano and Darth Vader beckoned as they swung their blades at each other. White versus red, light versus evil. Vader was clearly the aggressor. He fought with ferocity and hatred, but Ahsoka knew that Anakin was in there somewhere. He had to be. She knew her old master wasn't fully gone. As Ahsoka swung and cut his helmet open, Anakin looked at her with his own eyes, not the eyes of the Sith. When Ahsoka attempted to re-engage with him, Vader pauses. He freezes in this moment as he sees his apprentice again, and Ahsoka capitalizes, slicing through his robotic armor and finally through his chest, killing him. Ahsoka kills Vader right before the Temple of Malachor explodes, giving her enough time to flee with the rebels and go back to the base on Alderaan. On the other side of the galaxy, Sidious was absolutely furious that Vader had died. He was the best enforcer that Sidious could ever have hoped for, but also his Sith apprentice. In order to continue the Bane lineage, he would have to find and train another. With Vader's death, Thrawn would take this as his moment to ascend the ranks of the Empire. Immediately upon the reveal of Vader's death, Thrawn took control over the Executor, Vader's Star Destroyer, and made his fleet even larger with his ships. In recent years, as Thrawn rose to the rank of Grand Admiral, he had proven to be more effective than Tarkin in some aspects. The rebels would travel back to Alderaan where they celebrated a small victory. While Ezra, Kanan, and the others hugged and congratulated each other, Ahsoka knew the weight of her actions. She had just murdered Anakin. Although she knew that it was the right decision, she thought back to her time in the Clone Wars with him. Tears fell down her cheeks as she reminisced. Reports of Vader's death began to spread across the HoloNet. The fearsome Emperor's executioner dead. Over the following days, Kanan would attempt to come to terms with the loss of his sight. Just as in the original timeline, he would locate the Bendu and learn from him, expanding his views on the Force and becoming wiser. Ahsoka would comfort Kanan as he made this transition, realizing how difficult it must be. As the Bendu assisted Kanan in his recovery, Ahsoka became intrigued. She joined him one day as he visited his new master and made his acquaintance.
Welcome, Ahsoka Tano, former Jedi Knight.
Ahsoka looks at Bendu, intrigued with what he has to say.
There is a turbulent storm in your former Jedi. What came of this encounter with your master?
Ahsoka replies that her old master is dead.
You blame yourself, child. You think it is your fault he changed his allegiances all those years ago.
Ahsoka simply nodded. The Bendu frowned as he looked at her, before raising his hand and touching her forehead. Ahsoka was transported to another plane where she faced her darkest fears. Shadows of her past engulfed her, morphing into the terrifying visage of Darth Vader.
It's not your fault.
The scene shifted, and she saw herself delivering the fatal blow. But this time, as Ahsoka gazed into the eyes of Darth Vader, she saw the flickers of Anakin's true self. The friend and mentor she once knew, trapped and tormented. She realized that his turn to the dark side was a culmination of his own choices and the manipulations of the Sith, not a failure on her part. With this clarity, she understood that her final desperate act to strike him down was a necessary mercy, freeing Anakin's tormented soul from Vader's grasp. Tears streamed down her face as she finally forgave herself, understanding that Anakin's fall was well beyond her control. Light pierced the darkness as she felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. Suddenly, the vision cleared, revealing a serene desert landscape. There, standing resolute against the twin suns of Tatooine, was Obi-Wan Kenobi. His presence brought a reassuring calm, a beacon of hope guiding her path forward. Ahsoka would immediately leave, taking Rex and the Phantom to Tatooine. She follows the vision and her senses, arriving on the dune sands and locating her old friend, Obi-Wan Kenobi. At this point, it had been over 15 years since she had seen him. Obi-Wan thought she was dead. They embrace each other in a hug and he welcomes them both inside his hut. They have dinner together, sharing stories from the past and catching up. Ahsoka felt it was best to discuss why they were here in the end. Ahsoka asked why he is on Tatooine of all places, but also why he hasn't joined the rebellion and fought for the galaxy's liberty from the Empire. Obi-Wan strokes his chin as he contemplated telling Ahsoka his duties. He ultimately explains the tale of what happened the night that the Jedi Temple fell. Kenobi told him the story of Anakin and his duel on Mustafar, how we sliced Anakin down, but only for him to be reborn as Darth Vader. Kenobi was visibly shaking as he spoke. Ahsoka handed him some purple tea to calm his nerves. He continues, explaining that Anakin and Padme were married the entire Clone War, and after the Jedi's fall and before her death, she gave birth to Anakin's twin children. Ahsoka's mouth was flung open as she was left speechless. Anakin has children? It didn't make any sense to her. She always had an inclination that Anakin and Padme had a strong connection, but she didn't expect them to be married. Rex, on the other hand, put the pieces together. He told the two that General Skywalker would often require time alone to meditate, but he knew that he was talking to someone. Kenobi would explain that he is looking over Anakin's son as he grows up, ensuring that he is kept away from Anakin so that he doesn't take over. Ahsoka looked at Rex, who gave her a reassuring look that now was the time. Ahsoka holds Obi-Wan's hand as she explains that Anakin is dead. She killed him a few weeks ago in a confrontation on the Sith world Malachor. Obi-Wan's voice broke. He lowered his head. He knew that this was the best thing, but he was still upset. After all these years, his best friend, turned greatest enemy, was dead. He thinks back to their duel against Vader almost 10 years earlier. It was difficult to defeat him. Obi-Wan wonders how strong Ahsoka must have become since he last saw her. Ahsoka explained that they have come to ask him to join the rebellion. With Vader's death, his talents would be extremely useful in destroying the Emperor and reinstating the Republic. Obi-Wan agrees that it's time to come out of hiding without Vader to haunt him. Kenobi leaves with them, telling Owen and Brew that Anakin is dead. Owen knew what this meant, and Obi-Wan explained that it's time Luke found out about his heritage and joined the rebellion. It is his destiny. At first, Owen refused. He was trying to protect him from this, but when Luke found out about why they were arguing, he said he wanted to go with Kenobi. They traveled back to Alderaan. Reports of Vader's death began to spread throughout the rebellion and galaxy. This was a big deal, the Emperor's most effective enforcer dead. People wondered what impact it would have on the unstable state of the galaxy. The most immediate effect was a small upsurge of people joining the rebellion, believing that this is the beginning of the end for the Empire and that now it was time to help fight. In addition, the people of the rebellion learned of Obi-Wan's return, which filled everyone with lots of hope. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka would begin Luke's training together, helping him to understand the basics of the Force. They taught him the history of the Jedi, different Force techniques, and he focused his senses. He learned very quickly. It was clear that he was Anakin's son. By week 4, he was already able to successfully use the Force to sense incoming blaster fire and defend himself with Anakin's lightsaber. Kenobi and Tano were impressed. Meanwhile, the news of Vader's death, coupled with the reveal of Kenobi's return, aggravated Sidious into action. He became worried that more Jedi would become compelled out of hiding. And before long, the Empire would have an uprising on their hands that wasn't very easy to deal with. The Emperor contacts Thrawn and demands he finds the rebel base and destroy it. He won't tolerate failure. Thrawn would focus all of his efforts into finding the rebels. In his mind, this was his ticket to becoming the Emperor's right-hand man. If he is the reason they find and defeat the rebellion, his praise would be endless. He sends dozens of probes across the galaxy, searching for the rebels. Back on Alderaan, weeks had passed and Luke was becoming proficient in the Force. Ezra and Kanan joined their training sessions, and the 5 Jedi practiced together, enhancing their skills and readying themselves for the upcoming battle. These sessions were particularly helpful for Obi-Wan, who was not actively training with a lightsaber in many years. His skills returned to him very quickly, but not before Ahsoka was able to beat him on multiple training exercises. He was very impressed with how far she had come, and he made a comment of her growth since the Clone Wars, how Anakin would be proud of her. Luke was informed that Vader was his father and that now he is dead. But as per a request from Bail, the identity of Leia was kept a secret. The Jedi knew better than anyone that they were the most important people in the rebellion. There would be no one else better equipped to defeat the Emperor. Kanan suggests that the combined strength of all 5 of them would be plenty to defeat him, but Kenobi counters, saying that Sidious beat Yoda single-handedly at the end of the Clone Wars. Bail Organa sends an urgent message to Atollon, requesting for immediate assistance. Organa and Mothma's forces were situated on Alderaan, and one of Thrawn's probes had located them. They destroyed the probe, but it was certain that an invasion was imminent. The entire fleet on Atollon hits hyperspace. Thrawn informs the Emperor of his discovery, asking for as many troops as possible to complete this invasion. Sidious is concerned. He believed that Vader's death will have brought some surviving Jedi out of hiding and into the rebellion. Facing Jedi in this mission was inevitable, and at this point, Vader is gone, the Inquisitors are gone, and he doesn't think anyone else, including Thrawn, are better equipped to defeat Jedi like he is. Sidious tells Thrawn that he will lead the ground assault onto the planet. This was the first time in Imperial history that Sidious had joined a full-fledged battle. The Imperial forces entered the Alderaan system to find a small rebel blockade, but it was futile and clear that they stood no chance. Their sacrifice brought the rebellion enough time to mount all of their defenses. The Atollon fleet had arrived, but they were unable to receive contact from Admiral Akbar's fleet. When the Empire decimated the blockade, they invaded the planet. Led by Vader's Executive Star Destroyer and Thrawn's Chimera Star Destroyer, they entered the planet and began to fire upon the rebels. TIE fighters and X-Wings entered a dogfight, causing explosions and chaos to rain upon the ground assault. Thousands of stormtroopers were deployed to the ground below as they began running towards the rebels. Ezra and Kanan were already in the battle, slicing down troopers as they reached their position. Kenobi, Tano, and Skywalker remained in the control center with the rebel leaders. Thrawn stood on the bridge of the Chimera, calculating the battle in real time. He knew how pivotal it was to gain the upper hand at the beginning and apply pressure to his opponent. As Sidious stood next to him, he explained how he could sense a strong force presence on the planet and knows that they are down there. Thrawn recommended that he wait to enter the battle until the first wave was over, but the Emperor disagreed. He leaped to the surface, igniting 2 crimson lightsabers and swinging with fury, crackling as he demolishes his opponents. Thrawn was very impressed. This was the first time he had seen his master in action. He immediately changed the tide of the war and dozens of rebels fell like wildfire. He blasted lightning at turrets, blowing them up instantly and motivating his troops to push forward. In the rebel control center, Mothma and Organa gasped at what they witnessed. Mon asked who it could be. She thought Vader was dead. Kenobi looks at Organa and explains that it is the Emperor. Ahsoka tells Ezra and Kanan over the comms that the Emperor has arrived and to tread cautiously. They are coming now. As soon as she hangs up, Sidious leaps towards the two, swinging his blade with fury at the rebels. Kanan blocks the incoming strikes, using his force powers to sense where Sidious will go next. Ezra had grown a lot over the last few years, and he did his best to evade strikes, but Sidious was far too advanced to allow Ezra to fight back. The Dark Lord fires lightning at them, streaking over their blades. Kanan is overwhelmed and Sidious stabs him through the chest, killing him. Ezra screams as he attempts to defend himself. He couldn't do it. He was going to lose. As he is beaten to the ground, Ahsoka leaps forward and throws her saber towards Sidious and pushes him back with the Force. Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Luke join the fray, swinging with all of their might. Luke had been told to defend. He wasn't strong enough to apply any offense, so he acted as a nuisance for Palpatine. Sidious fires lightning at them as they defend, and Kenobi takes the lead, employing his Form 3 fighting style. The combined strength of the Jedi was overwhelming Sidious, but as he felt his nerves, he threw a saber straight into Ezra's arm and sliced it from his body. He was out of the fight and in great pain. But doing this opened the Emperor to an attack, and Ahsoka took the chance, swinging with everything she had. Kenobi notices this and does the same, and together, with their combined strength, they overthrow Sidious and kill him. The rebels were informed that the Emperor was dead, giving everyone the motivation to push forward. This was the time, but there were still so many Imperials, and Thrawn led the attack, his ingenious tactics allowing them to push forward. However, as the rebels questioned if they could win or not, Admiral Akbar's fleet entered the system and began firing at the Star Destroyers from behind, immediately destroying Vader's and destroying all of the defenses on Thrawn's. Reinforcements were sent to the surface and the ground assault was thwarted. In the sky, Akbar's 5 command ships fired at Thrawn, catching the bridge and blowing it up. He was dead. The rebellion had won. Celebrations were short-lived as the rebellion made their push for Coruscant. With Vader, Sidious, and Thrawn, and many troops dead, many people across the galaxy began standing up and joining the cause. The rebellion had never been stronger, and over the course of a few months, fought their way to the capital. Before his imminent death, Tarkin surrenders and the rebellion successfully reclaimed the galaxy. Bail Organa takes the mantle of Supreme Chancellor and unites the Republic once again. The remnants of the Empire were destroyed, and after 2 long decades, peace was restored. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka would tell Leia about her heritage, and she would meet her brother Luke. Along with Bail's support, she would join them as they begin to rebuild the Jedi Order. They go to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant as they begin the restoration process. It would take many years, but they had a strong starting point with powerful masters. Ahsoka became the Grand Master of the Order, and they created the first ever High Jedi Council with Ezra and Obi-Wan. More Jedi across the galaxy who had survived the Purge began returning to Coruscant, and they rejoined the Order. This process would take a while, but eventually, the Jedi would return to his former glory. Ahsoka had killed Vader, and the subsequent events led to the overthrow of the Empire and the rebirth of the Republic and Jedi Order. She and Obi-Wan would never forget Anakin, and they hoped that he was looking down on them, proud of their achievements, free from the torment of Darth Vader. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch what if Ahsoka saved Anakin on Mustafar, and what if Anakin started his own Jedi Order. Please check out our membership page if you would like to support the channel, it really helps us out. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.